Yeah. Okay. Good evening, and thank you all for joining. Actually, this entire idea came up like what Vijay said. We first tried to do something on a face-to-face, on a physical meeting, which I don't know why there was no response. Maybe people thought it's too early for it. I don't know. I mean, let's leave that subject. After that, we were looking at various topics on which we can do some more of the online sessions. Okay, a monologue works to an extent. Beyond that, I think the fatigue on webinars was setting in and all that. So that's when I had a chat with Ganesh. And I said, Ganesh, let's do something different. So I was asking him, why don't we do something called coaching conversations, where we get two seasoned coaches to speak on any subject. That's what it's my initial thought. And then start and then get the participants to engage with them, so that a lot of views get exchanged and people learn both ways. But Ganesh said, yes, but let's make it topic specific. That's how the whole thing set up. And I think, it's good to see close to 25 people today. And I thank you very much, Ganesh, for making it today. May I request you to say a few words, then we hand over to Rajashri to conduct the evenings.
No, please go ahead, and I will come in as we go. I'm just delighted that we're all there. And yeah, next meeting has to be in person, yes. Even if it means we do it in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah.
I like that.
Message to be Vijay.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, we should do face-to-face. Let's do it.
Yes, we'll do that. And we will take help from Saroja, who has done so many successful meetings, to help us do the next meet. Okay, Saroja. Looking forward to your help.
On that subject, I wasn't saying anything, but on that subject, I was the first one to put a hand tick on the face-to-face notice.
First, yeah.
And I also sent a private message to Rajshri.
Yes, she pinged me, gave me a lot of suggestions on how to go about with the event. Yes.
I have been quietly working behind the scenes. So
let's do it,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sure, sir. Thank you. And
Let's
over to you, Rajshri.
Hey, thanks a lot, and thanks Raj, and thanks Ganesh, and Saroja mentioned thanks a lot from giving all your inputs and guidance in taking this forward. I think we are also tired about this virtual event and just changing the background, the image. That's not satisfying. We need to really go to the exotic places, be it Kuala Lumpur or the Kottapuram Tolkappiyar Park, whatever it is. I think let's make it. But I think we did the mistake of not putting the powerful speakers first. We just said that shall we meet. What we realized is that only when we put the name like Mr. Sridhar and Ms. Sharda, and then the nominations, I think people are kind of joining in. So I take pleasure in introducing the powerful speakers. And thanks both Ms. Sridhar and Ms. Sharda for starting this series. We'll do it virtual or physical. Let's continue this knowledge sharing. And I would do a very bad job introducing, like someone who's so well known, Sridhar, to this community. I think the moment we kind of see his face or hear his name, all these hashtags of busting mental blocks and clearing cobwebs. So what's a better way? Like we want to come out of the shell of COVID and then clear all our cobwebs in our mind and bust all the mental blocks that we want to start this series. And that's how we started. And he comes with such a rich experience as particularly as an ideation coach, and he'd been a facilitator and a coach, particularly as an innovation coach and a consultant for several years, and a public speaker. And of course, I'd been a recipient of his book as well. And thanks for him for his personally signed copy, and very beautifully written, very clear and in simple language. That's what real power of ideation, unlocking the real power of ideations. His book is something like very simple and kind of connecting with most of us. A very rich years of experience with Ogilvy Mathur, and particularly Ogilvy One Worldwide Mumbai as a chairman. So it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. And he's going to talk about specifically coaching people for preparing them for the next level, and that's going to be the topic for the day. And let me also quickly introduce Ms. Sharda as well, so that we can do together. And of course, she's a professional coach and a workshop facilitator. I mean, she actually has a psychology background, unlike many of us. And she's led several corporate teams to build a vision and strategy with a very strong experience with the Bharat Petroleum Corporation. Both worked there as an internal coach and led programs for driving large transformational changes in the organizations. and different functional teams articulating the results and so on. And as well as as a professional coach and a facilitator for many years, and specifically leadership and executive coach. And she has very rich experience both in transition coaching as well as in coaching people, preparing them for the next level. So we thought that we'll take the common topic that coaching for people, preparing them for the next level as a topic for the day. And thanks Sridhar and Sharda for gracefully accepting this and then giving us this real star value kickstart of our next series. Thank you. Over to you.
So, Sridhar?
Oh my God. I thought you were starting ladies first and all that. My God.
No, I didn't want to get into that, so I just kept quiet.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to be talking about this subject. I'm very fond of this subject. I've been a beneficiary of this particular issue. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So grooming for the next level of readiness. How does one coach someone for his or her next level of readiness? I speak from my personal experience where my bosses played the role of a coach. So there is a story one. Now I worked in this company everybody knows, Crompton Greaves. Immediately after my graduation, I worked with Crompton Greaves. My first experience was there. I worked in Pune for the lighting division. We had one dealer who was not clearing a consignment and our payment was stuck. We learned that the transporter had delivered the goods to the dealer, but would not admit it. So my manager sent me there to the dealer to assess the situation and submit a report for further action. When I landed there, I was taken to the transporter's godown. Dealer would not clear the consignment because the cases were exposed to rain during the transit and the cases were wet. Dealer suspected that fittings would have been damaged. If I reported that goods were damaged and can't be used without repair, we would not get payments. Plus, we would incur additional expenses for taking the goods back, repair and replace fittings. I spoke to my manager and told him the exact situation and asked for his advice. He said, "You're the man there on the spot. Make an honest assessment of the situation. Do what you think is right for the end user, the dealer, and the company. Think like the branch manager and not as a sales executive. Do what is right by the dealer and the company. I'll go by your recommendation." Now, today, when I say this, I'm able to talk about this in a fairly calm manner. And when he said that to me that day, I was completely taken aback. I thought he was putting me on the spot, right? And I didn't know what to do. Nevertheless, I had to go ahead and do what he asked me to do. So I put together a very detailed report, which was total goods received, number received in good condition, number damaged but can be fixed, number damaged but need to be replaced. I persuaded the dealer to be a co-signatory for the report. But this was a coup in one sense because he saw me diligently work. And he was much older than me. He was probably slightly younger to my father. So when he saw my sincere work, he was gently saying, it's nice to see people like this and so on. So I actually capitalized on that and persuaded him to be a co-signatory for the report. My manager resolved the issue in a very fair manner, ensured that all stakeholder issues were resolved. At the same time, though, I felt that he was putting me on the spot. During an internal review meeting, he asked me to speak about the issue. I was forthright and I shared how I felt at that time. I was forced to think like the manager and take a top angle view. I learned that day how to think like a manager and not just like a sales assistant. His questions still remain in my mind. His questions were, is your solution right? Does it solve the problem? Number one. Number two, is it taking care of a short-term issue or taking care of a long-term view? Third, is it a band-aid fix or an effective long-term solution? I love the expression, band-aid fix. Okay. If it was your business, that's what the real important thing. If it was your business and you're the owner, what would you do? If you're the dealer, what would you do? Expect in terms of a fair solution, right? So what it really taught me is to, when you look at a situation, how to look at it from every stakeholder's perspective so that you have an interesting, so even if you're alone, you can actually, mentally put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? So, I mean, it's being empathetic to their position. When you take this perspective, the way in which the decision could be taken was very different, right? So let me tell you the story number 2. Now, here is another example, again, from my real life, from my days when I was working in Ogilvy, Chennai. When I worked in Chennai for 6 years before I went off to Bangalore and back to Bombay. When my head of office was away for a couple of months on a senior management training, I had the opportunity to work directly with my MD. I was reporting to him. I had to send our monthly performance reports. I managed costs well, and we met our monthly income and profit targets, and I thought I was doing a very good job. On one of his visits, he took me out for lunch. He wanted to know about my impression of officiating as head of office. I talked to him about how I managed costs and ensured our targets were met. So what he said to me, or he shook me up, he said, you don't grow your business by saving costs. You grow your business by getting more business, focus on that. So I said, I thought I was playing a caretaker. He said, who said that? I said, no one. So that's your assumption. You're the officiating head of the office, not just a caretaker. Think of how to help your clients grow their business, thereby growing our business. That was an eye-opener. Think of how to help your clients grow their business, thereby growing our business. This thinking has helped me grow enormously as an individual. During my days as the head of our Ogilvy, Bangalore, then when I set up Ogilvy Direct, which is the direct marketing arm, and finally when I started on my own, he clearly coached me for the future by shaping my thinking. Coaching for the next level of readiness must be holistic in its approach. That's what I believe. As a future leader, the person must take a look at the bigger picture, must simultaneously take a helicopter view and tackle ground realities. Now that's, I think, the balancing act, the helicopter view, and the ground level realities kind of stuff. Here are 4 simple questions that can lead a good coaching conversation in this context. I mean, these 4 questions are taught to us by CFI. One is, what is happening today? What would you like happening instead? What is coming in the way? What is the biggest barrier for which you need ideas? And that becomes the coaching objective kind of stuff. I had 2 opportunities to coach senior managers for their next levels of readiness. In both cases, the brief from the sponsor was as vague as you can get. We think he could be a good candidate, but we don't want to build hopes. At the same time, we don't want him to miss the opportunity should it arise. I requested for a job description of the next level. It was given to me in confidence. It was not to be shared with the coachee. Coachee and I had a conversation about what would be his next level. He was clear about that. We discussed what it takes to get there. He was a bit reticent when we started this conversation. So I flipped the question. What are the things you would never do if you moved to your next level? This question, I think, liberated him. He was quite eloquent sharing his views on that. I took notes as he spoke. We stopped after about 15 minutes. I shared my notes with him and said, you have a list of what you would not do. Why don't you flip it? Convert that to a list of action steps. I don't understand. Give me an example. So I gave an example. Here's an example. I never criticize people in public. Let us convert that into a positive statement. I need help. Can you show me how this is done? Okay. I'll never criticize people in public. Can be stated as always praise in public, criticize in private. We put together a broad list for addressing a CEO, right? Or sorry, assessing a CEO. The broad list came to be intellect, problem solving, and systems thinking, very important. Ability to work well with ambiguity and conflict. Ability to learn continuously. Drive to excel in good times and bad times. Emotional intelligence and ability to influence others. Leadership style, versatility. different strokes for different folks. So, I mean, this was a very important thing. There are people who are very, very, very strong in giving orders and commands, etc., but they could never be a facilitative style. They could never be a coaching style. So flexibility and versatility at this point was seeming very, very important. Thought, maturity, and fellow feeling. Now, this again is a thing I learned from my very first boss in advertising, a person called Frank Simoes. He said that, look, it's all very easy for you to do the right thing according to the job list. But what about the people who are doing the jobs, right? Are you being sensitive to that? So thought, maturity, and fellow feeling is something he actually talked about in the context of working with people, working with a client, working with colleagues, working with stakeholders, working with suppliers. He said the more you become better at this, the better the quality of work you will be able to get done. So our next step was to convert this list into observable behavior in the context of the coaching. Example, ability to work with ambiguity and conflict. A classic example is when my manager tells me during appraisal that he would like to see substantial improvement in my work. What is substantial and how can he define it and how can we measure it? Again, I go back to my former boss. We were talking about writing a better, more inspiring brief to give our creative department. This was in the advertising business. What is better, more inspiring brief? So let us take one section on describing the target audience, people who have been in the advertising business, we can appreciate. When typical brief would state target audience as middle-class women with children residing in metros. This is as vague as it can get. Certainly not inspiring for the creative people. They can't imagine this person to be able to communicate with this person. The more the creative person is able to actually imagine this person sitting in front of him in flesh and blood, he will be actually able to communicate as if it is a conversation with the one-to-one person. My MD suggested I put together a description of a real person in our target group. Talk about her as in the day of in a day in the life of. Create a mood board or a collage board. Now, for those of us who are not familiar with this, in the old days, what we used to do is we get a whole lot of magazines and cut pictures of this particular person in terms of where she lives, where she works, where she plays, what is her daily routines like. So morning, afternoon, evening, night. What does she do for relaxation? What is her day, holiday? What are her holidays like, etc. Once you have a mood board like this, it is eminently possible for the creative person to actually put himself in the shoes of the consumer, of the target audience, and create communication for her. It is as if she's there sitting in front of him, right? So this should help the creative person relate to the person for whom he has to create communication. We are talking to Meenakshi Venkatraman, who stays in an apartment block in Mumbai, which has 10 high-rise buildings, 6 floors each, 50 flats in the building. You can imagine the whole thing. Her flat is in the 7th floor of one of the buildings facing the east. They have 2 balconies. The housing society has a nice park, a walking track for elders, and a play area for the children. The mood board would have pictures, cut-out magazines, downloaded from the net, and so on. What has all this to do with grooming someone for the next stage of readiness? As a head of office, it was my job to help produce outstanding work that delivered results for our clients. One of the most important parts was to manage my relationship with our creative people and to inspire them to deliver outstanding work. I had to earn their trust, demonstrate that I was keen in getting great creative work as they were keen to produce. As head of office, I had to demonstrate I was keen to help produce great creative work. My creative team must feel that they have the best work, their best work was safe in my hands, and I'll see it through, get clients to invest in that work. Summing up, I come back to grooming for the next level of readiness. I believe every manager must be ambitious for his people. They should never be satisfied with someone who just performs exactly as per his job description. Leaders go beyond that. They see a future. Tomorrow is about hope and optimism. It is not about status quo. When we are helping someone, here are the things that occur to me. Raise the bar on performance, always stretch people to perform one level above their position. Help people understand divine dissatisfaction. David Ogilvy, the famous advertising legend, called it divine discontent. Don't be easily satisfied with quick solutions. Make the people think like a decision maker, the boss. Use the four-way test. Does it solve the problem short term and long term? Is it fact to everyone concerned? Is the solution replicable in other similar situations? Is it cost and time effective? I think if you're able to do that and help our people also get on board with this, I think we will be in a position to groom them for the future and make them future ready. Thank you for the opportunity to share my views. Thank you.
Thanks, Sridhar.
Thank you, Sridhar. I think, Sharda, you can
Start.
go, start, and then after that, we'll have the conversations.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you actually for this wonderful opportunity, because am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what really happened was, when I was, Raj, Vijay and Rajeshri told me about this topic, I really sat down, because reflecting on all my coaching engagements thus far, and looked at the leaders or the people whom I coached and would fall under this category. So quickly, I thought I'll just take a few quick responses from the participants here, for people, my fellow coaches. Who do you think, would fall under this category? Grooming for the future, next level of readiness. Any your thoughts on this?
A promising manager.
Promising manager, being groomed for the future. Okay.
Who has been shortlisted is, the organization wants him to grow.
Okay.
Typically, the ones who come under high potentials, high posts in organizations.
Okay.
Identified for succession planning purposes.
Okay,
Yes.
identified for succession planning, yes.
Organization is going through a lot of turmoil, flux,
Okay.
and complete shift, and then probably only the next level of leaders who need to take care of it. So
Yeah.
people who identify.
Okay. So yes, we are all, I think, are on the same page, because what I saw was that we need to be very aware of the fact that transition coaching for transition doesn't fall under this category. It has a slightly different dimension to that than grooming for the future, because we are looking at succession planning. We are looking at succession planning where transition is not there. These are my thoughts. I'm not trying to profess anything here. So that's how I was trying to sort out my experience in this area of grooming for future and next level of readiness. And coaching and context. These are two very important words. So how would you like to connect these two? Coaching and context. How would you like to connect these two? Make a statement.
Context is an opportunity
Okay.
for the individual
Mm-hmm.
or a requirement of the organization.
Okay. Anybody else?
Context is the background in which the coachee is operating.
Okay, the background.
Coaching is, the ecosystem. It covers everything: the ecosystem, the culture, the hierarchy, the requirement of the role, right down to what is expected. And coaching is a vehicle to help coachee situate himself in that context and
Okay.
perform.
Excellent. And I think you have sort of said it all. I remember many years back, when in the early years of my coaching, Ganesh used to make a statement. Coaching is always within a context. It cannot be standalone. And it never occurred to me. It was just hearsay, but it sort of, it didn't get internalized. And I used to wonder, what is it trying to say? But today, I think I'm on the other side, and I will say that coaching can never be divorced from the context. And I will elaborate on this a little more in the later part of this my presentation. And I'm just trying to establish a few things here because these are very critical, especially in this particular topic that we have picked for the day. So I will first go for the coaching part, and which means coaching the individual, the coachee. So what I did was from various engagements that I was involved, I broadly classified them under coaching is from the manufacturing sector, service sector, and related all other industries. I've put women leaders as coaches from different sectors. Coaches under 35 years from IT sector whom I coached. They could be from other sectors also. And I sort of broadly brought them here as 3 segments, because while there could be some common elements across all of them, there are few things which are different from stand apart for each of these categories. And what I noticed was the typical coaching needs, the broad areas. For most of them, under all the categories, were in the areas of emotions, which means emotional awareness, management, expression, whatever you call it as EQ, and emotional intelligence, all under that broad category. People managing skills. Now, I have coached quite a lot of people in the manufacturing segment, and I found that most of them, or really all of them, are very good in the technical and domain expertise. But after a certain stage, when they are being really identified as high potential for next level of leadership, their people managing skills, they fall short of it. And that is a big ask from the manufacturing segment where I coached. This is all my personal experience again. Diversity and inclusiveness, given the current reality today. There's one IT company where I saw, people, leaders, we had discussion around that, who had hired, transgenders in their organizations, who had, hired, what do you call, neither male nor female, but, their inclination is towards the same sex, and they are very open about it. And the leaders had to deal with it without their own personal biases falling. So we had conversations around that when you talk of diversity and the extent of diversity and inclusiveness. Another major area that was constantly showing up was holding the big picture and being able to lead, keeping that big picture in, because people forget that they have moved to the leadership role. Many of them continue to be in the managerial role and, expressing and demonstrating managerial behaviors and not really knowing the difference between that and what is leadership behavior. This is one area, again, I was constantly encountering. Again, picking up a collaborative style of leadership. And one very important thing which was again showing up was the ability to exude a certain stature and presence as a leader. These people have been managerial in many ways and probably it worked, but when they are being identified and the coaching came into the way, this was another major area of a coaching need that was showing up. So what does it really mean, stature and presence? It's about really believing themselves to be leaders and exuding a certain presence, participating in senior level meetings with a certain sense of who they are and what therefore the value they add as leaders in terms of policy, decision, strategies, and all other related top level discussions. So these are broadly, I thought I'm not getting into the details because we can later talk since this is more a conversational. Apart from the needs that I have shared earlier, women leaders, I noticed in my personal experience that they were actually showing a certain reluctance and fear about taking on larger roles, bigger roles. And the reluctance and fear is not about the role. Their aspiration is there, but there is a fear because they'll be loaded furthermore. Already these people are loaded with their domestic roles, with their organizational roles, and the ability, and now that they have to take on leadership roles puts a certain reluctance, but definitely the aspiration was there. They see it as an uphill task. And many of these women coaches whom I coached were in, some of them, I would say many of them, were in the manufacturing, construction, male-dominated, hierarchy-based organizations. And they had no real role models. So they thought they were in competition with their male colleagues, and their ability to really be who they were was totally, I would say, was not even, they were not able to bring it up. Hello? And there was a certain fatigue because many of these male colleagues would go out, have drink parties, outings, which none of these women leaders would be able to do. And they felt that was a one big drawback that they were having in trying to getting groomed for the senior roles or leadership roles. And the other part of it is inability to ask or seek help. Now, there are few leaders, I don't know whether you would believe, they were holding all the roles at home. That is, they would cook at home, they had no servant, they would take care of the children's education, and when they come to the organization, they had to play the leader's role. Now, when I was coaching this particular woman, I was pretty shocked because I thought that was somewhere, I never expected to that level of lack of support in her life. And we had to spend in the initial part, even for her aspiration, but she had huge aspirations to take on leadership roles. And the early part of the engagement was spent on really, helping her to see how she can seek support. And let me tell you one thing, once they see that strength and that they can do it, that spirit, that attitude, within 2 months, she hired help. She made it very clear to her mother-in-law she has to take over some of the cooking kitchen responsibilities. She told her spouse to take on the responsibilities of education of her children. And then she comes to me and says, "Ma'am, I'm really ready now." And that is a spirit which I've seen in quite a few women who really, if they were given that particular support like coaching, I think they are absolutely ready to take on. Then low trust levels. Yes, some women who have been in this certain roles, like totally surrounded by men, the trust level is very low. So what they have done is they have a hard exterior, but an absolutely vulnerable interior. So they have not really matured or seasoned themselves within, from the within. And they present a picture of aggression. They present a picture of absolutely, others cannot reach out to them. And such leaders, tomorrow they have to take on, obviously their interpersonal skills were a big challenge. And working with this, for me, it was a huge task, really working with these women, because it's a drain on your own energy, but holding on, because I do believe that just penetrating that big facade of this, I know that they can turn around. And holding on, to me, that was a big, I think, is a big area which probably I would like to leave it here in terms of not to give up, not to, be disappointed. Of course, it needs quite a big level of energy and persistence and persuasiveness. But once they turn around, I have 2-3 coaches like this who simply call me at any time and say, "Ma'am, I need to have a talk." The engagement is over, but they still reach out, and they're so self-assured now. So I think that ability to really, mature within, so that they don't have to put up a facade of aggression outside, is a great opportunity in grooming such women leaders for future levels. And that's why I brought this
volume.
The next.
Yes.
are under coaches under 35 years. Okay, they are all young, raring with energy and but very little exposure and experience, but leading, they are the heads of their verticals, and coaching these young leaders, I observe that there is some element of mentoring that comes in. So need to be ready for that. But the downside of this is if you do not keep your awareness levels up, you will end up doing more of mentoring than coaching, because they look up to you in terms of age, also in terms of experience, and they start looking up to you. So we need to really be aware of that factor and be very clear how much of mentoring we are doing, and make it very clear that, you know, it's now coaching. They need to discover their answers. See, they do not have that exposure in as of now, like many of the other industry leaders whom I coached. However, they're very quick in uptake and turn around fast. They're very enthusiasm. I have observed this. They're very direct and straight. I use a lot of the challenging, challenge in this engagements with them, because they're very quick. They're not waiting here to be sort of soft pedaling and all those things. Their resistance level is low because they want to learn and grow fast. They're very appreciative of the process. What happens is, I think I'll come to that part later in my. So when I was looking at this topic, coaching is for addressing their coaching need. But where is the grooming element, I was thinking? And I realized that unknowingly, I was doing the grooming part of it also in all these engagements. Now, what was a grooming element in these engagements? See, when we are coaching leaders of this caliber, of this level, and they have to really take on very high responsibilities, accountabilities, and positions, I realized their vision, along with coaching, I would usually have conversations around their vision for themselves as a leader and for their life. Because personally, I believe that if I work with the individual behind the role, any role that these people are playing, they will be able to play. So my whole part of quite a big segment of my engagement with these people would be in the following areas. One is their vision for themselves. And invariably, all human beings, all coaches whom I work with in this segment, when you talk about for themselves as leader, all the big elements of nurturing, I want to really support, I want to coach these people, I want to see my people working under me to grow. These are the type of conversations and aspirations that they speak of, which is a very natural human dimension of any individual. They're only leaders in that roles, but fundamentally are human beings. And that is where I usually have quite a bit of conversations. Their mindsets, leaders in these roles, what is their mindsets? To explore this more, I would be having conversations to check whether they're having an entrepreneurial mindset, a growth mindset. What is their, how do they deal with setbacks? All of this. Today I was reading, I think, who shared this article? Is it Saroja, Times of India, Ravi Venkatesan's? I don't know where I shared this today. I got this article. It's a very interesting article where he wrote that every setback in any senior leadership role has led them to a totally different direction and has been a future, trigger for future growth and success. And his becoming, Microsoft CEO also was one such cases where it was triggered by one, a setback in his life. And I think how they deal with setback is a very big element in the coaching of these level of people, for this category of people. Responsibility and accountability for their own emotions, behaviors. How responsive are they? How accountable and responsibility they take for their own emotions, behaviors. So it's no longer blame game. It's no longer about finding the problem out there, but what is really triggering off this type of emotions in me. And having these conversations actually helps them to really reflect on what has worked for them, what is not working for them. The other element is believing themselves to be a leader. Many of these people who have been identified and are getting groomed for the next level do not believe that they are a leader as yet. And spending a lot of time, that is, there has to be a certain end to the type of role that they were playing thus far. And they need to invite certain new ways of thinking, mindsets, and behavioral and leadership repertoire, behavior repertoire, are some things which they need to be really now start becoming aware of and making it real into their lives. This is another dimension which I noticed was very critical in all these conversations. And many of these many of these leaders always came up with one common challenge that they were facing, which is how do we lead the millennials? This is a challenge which many of them have raised. And I put back the question to them and I asked them, see, at this juncture, I would like to share this thought of mine, which is today, if you see your family structures, they are very flat. Today, our children can say anything to us. And, we have conversations which in our generation, I don't think I would have had with my parents, while they were very open-minded and liberal in their mind. But we have to agree that today the authority dimension has really flattened down. And if these people are working in organizations, in manufacturing settings where their hierarchy and all is very high, they're not ready for this. So I have conversations to understand, and also we have to see what is really at the family level that's happening. How do they really experience their own children? Because there's a lot of learning to be taken from there. And these are the very age profiles who are actually your millennials in your work environment. And having those conversations and recognizing the challenges that we face are similar. They are very, very tech savvy. They want challenging things and want to be left alone to, come up with the outcomes and results. They don't like to be given instructions. They want to experiment, explore. So all these dimensions come up, and we may not have solutions, and the leaders, the coaches do not have solutions, but they definitely go back with certain level of openness to recognize and accept, that these people are actually, as to take them as who they are and work with them, not trying to be the know-all. You need to be, there's certain level of vulnerability that they have to exhibit with these people, and maybe come up a collaborative style of coming up with, how to work around with this generation of people. So these are basically the conversations, and I wanted to spend a little time on this because this I find is a very critical element of coaching engagements. I found this from my personal experience, and this definitely enhances the mindset of the leaders. And now I'm coming to the context. I said coaching is always within a context. Today, we cannot ignore the fact that the context is a very big factor. Now, I would have obviously say pre-COVID, the context was not such a big element, in the sense it was very stable, very mature, very predictable. But today, the context is very dynamic. Many of the leaders do not know what is, the dynamism is bringing in terms of the challenges. They have no answers. The working style has changed, the culture is changing. There are a lot of other challenges. Now, this one company that I was working, which is a IT, highly tech-driven, overnight, they adapted to this post-COVID, or during the COVID remote working. Overnight, they were so, tech-driven, and they had no challenges. However, they had challenges of a very different nature. They were dealing with a lot of workforce who, they have shift system. So they found that many of their employees were coming from homes and where the siblings were both employees in the organization, but from different shifts. Now in the house, one of the reckoning is the parents were not believing that they thought that the children are not working anymore. The second part of is the children are working in 2 shifts and there's disturbing the whole environment of the house. So the leaders had to really go call many of these homes, talk to the people. They had to buddy together and come up with a solution to say, make them single shift, a common shift, and talk to the parents and give them the assurance, that these people are working from home, they are not lost their jobs. These are the type of things that these people had to reckon with. When I'm saying the changes, that unprecedented, unexpected changes and challenges that are coming up post-COVID. And when we talk of next level of readiness, we cannot be ignorant of this context element. There's one more dimension I thought of sharing from my own experience, because today this is another conversational point with many of the people. And what's the future going to come, and what is it going, how is going to turn around? Because some of the companies are very, very remote working friendly. They have structures built around that, wherein remote working becomes absolutely possible. But many, many corporates who are totally, in physical offices and all, the structures processes are not designed for this. And so if the leaders are not cognizant of that, a lot of attrition is also being experienced by many of these organizations. And that's another, because they're not able to manage their talent or their employee engagement. These are becoming big areas of concern, managing culture. So yes, and a few tools to sustain their growth journeys, which I always work with and help them imbibe into their lives, into their journey, is reflection and contemplation. I think leadership, one of the big, I would say, skill that has been not fully explored is a skill of reflection and contemplation. I think every leader, this is a big skill that I think all the leaders need to hold. Holding their vision as a North Star and their action plans according to that. What vision of life and vision of who they want to see themselves as leaders is what I'm addressing to here. Self-checks in any given situation, new situation, how are they experiencing themselves, is another dimension which I always leave them to keep doing this with themselves, self-check, because it gives them an indication of where they are, what are the challenges, what are they doing well in their new behaviors. So this is what I could cull out from my own experience and what I have been doing probably unknowingly. And today's conversation opportunity has helped me to really, sort of bring it out. And I think I would really need to thank this Vijay, Rajeshri, and Raj. So I rest here. I thank you very much. So I think any questions?
Thank you, Sarda, for such a brilliant session.
Yeah, one more thing. Sorry, I forgot this. This is one very, very key points which I noticed, which special attention must be paid in all these things, are the three-way meetings. Three-way meetings are tremendous opportunities to really get the ground set, because if we do not use this up to the optimum level, wherein we really understand what is expected of the leader, what is expected of the coach, and whether the coach, she is in resonating with the ask. And if he is not, or he or she is not, helping them to address that then and there, be able to raise it and have that conversation, and then coming at the end of the three-way, whether there is being a real, I would say, what's the word? I don't like the word agreement as much as, what's the word? The coach really comes out with a true understanding of what is being asked for him, when, as a way to future readiness. Goal and action plan. Alignment, absolutely right, alignment. Goal and action plan. Sharper the goal. The sharper the goal and action plan, the success of the coaching is directly proportional to that. I have coaches, especially in manufacturing sector, they're so good in their goal directed and behaviors and all. amazing results I have seen, who have become far more, global level leaders, just because they have focused on their goal and action plan, and they've seen the power of it. This action plan actually helps them at their mental level to see what they're aspiring for as a possibility. And once they know that, it becomes a part of their DNA in terms of being a leader also. And the third part, which is a closure, to me, it's always magical. Because when Kochi, you know that he no longer needs you. To me, that is a sign of my high point for me, because he is now on his own. And he doesn't need a coach. He's not coach dependent. And to me, that is a tremendous feeling of good high, and success personally for me. And I think this is also which I wanted to share with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharda.
Yeah.
Now I think the floor is open for conversations. Your viewpoints, you can reflect on what Sridhar and Sharda. Over to you, please.
Hi Raj, this is Shantanu here.
Yeah, hi Shantanu.
I have a question for Sridhar.
Oh.
Sridhar said 4 steps, that what are you currently doing and what you want to do, and then what are the stoppages, and then action. So basically, sometimes I see some coaches are not very clear on the things you want to do. Because sometimes the sponsor gives the very vague thing that, as you were telling that, more robust or more directional. So it is very, what I should say, subjective without really defining. So the coachee also is very confused that what, so how do you take action in those places?
So the best thing to do is to help them dream for the future, right? One of the things is to show them possibilities. Talk about opportunities where people at similar kind of levels have grown to different things, right? For instance, give an example, somebody who came from the manufacturing stream becomes the CEO of the organization, right? That's evidently possible. So what happens very often is that people think in a linear fashion, saying from this to I want to move to this kind of level is the way in which the track goes. But if there is a way in which we can actually help them take a helicopter view and give them enough examples of how people have moved into different kinds of stuff, different kinds of opportunities, then they say that, okay, now this too is possible. So I think the coach's role is to actually open up the vision of possibilities. I mean, that's what I would say. You've got to trigger imagination. I mean, that's extremely important.
Thanks, Sridhar.
Thank you.
I have a question for Sharda. For the younger generation, that point which you had, how are they experiencing themselves? How would they get a real feel of that? I mean, how do you find that out from them?
How are they experiencing themselves in coaching or in their roles?
In their roles.
See, what I've noticed is these young leaders are absolutely very energetic, raring to go, but they don't know how. They don't know how. So the question is all about helping them to discover what would really, one is expanding their mindset. I always ask them to, what are some of the role models that they have, as leaders they really admire? What, it's not the people, but what of their behaviors, what of their actions that really, what is it resonates with them? So when they start seeing that, they really see that as a possibility. It's just that one is establishing a certain aspiration of a possibility. The other is helping them to see that there is a path to that possibility. Because many of these people have their, as I said, their exposure being very limited. And they don't know, they themselves do not believe as yet that they are leaders. And these people are also dealing with workforce who are much, much younger. So they are still in many times I've noticed there's a certain playfulness dimension to them. And they do not know how, they think leader means you have to stand apart separately, very, upright and tight. But it's all about having those conversations to say that what are the, prime responsibility as a leader, which differentiates them from the others in their team.
Actually, they are pretty blind to what's happening outside of them because they are so blinded by their own vision, So that makes them.
So the vision, therefore, the vision has to be worked on. The vision within the organization context, what is expected. And here the sponsor role is very critical. So that's where I come to the three-way meeting, where the sponsor has to really articulate. I spent time with the sponsor to understand why he wants his people to be coached. What is he really expecting? And I tell him, you have to communicate that with the coachee. And the coachee has to see that when his boss is expecting that of him, it becomes really, and they get very this thing about it. So I think that three-way meeting is to me, I found it to be a very critical part in this process. Does that answer your question, Sujata?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also looking at experiencing themselves in the sense that when do they feel comfortable about it, not comfortable? How are they dealing with feedback which is negative? Sometimes they just don't accept it, that's one thing for youngsters. I think that level of maturity, maybe as you said, that doesn't it's not there. So
there's one dimension is for these people are ability to separate their feelings and their content, helping them to really get in touch with the emotional dimension and the content part. Because what happens is always comes as a mix, and they always see feedback as a negative, something, not okay. So helping them to sort of separate the two, the feelings and the content part, and what is the feedback about? Is it about him or her? Or about, they bring the top-down approach, the cognitive approach into this whole non-acceptance. The cognitive approach is that logical conversations with them. What are they really upset about? What is it that getting communicated to them? The feeling, what are they feeling about it? So many of these people, and in fact, I think in all our engagements, the emotional dimension is a very universal dimension of the ability to separate out the emotions and the content.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I speak, Sharda?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just share what we used to do in Titan. As you rightly said, the vision is very, very important. And that vision obviously gets percolated to different departments. And therefore, based on that vision, the individual prepares what we call as a key result area. So that document actually serves as a policy deployment document. And the concerned coachee has to really work on that and ensure that whatever he does is in line with that policy and the vision. That is what we used to do in Titan. And number two, I have a question to both yes and yes. When you do coaching, apart from the various competencies that you talk of, some competencies definitely fall in the category of behavior. These behavioral changes, what I have noticed is that it is temporary. The coachee tries to make some drama and show that he has changed, but over a period of time, he again goes back to his original rubber band style. So how do we prevent that from happening?
Either you want to go first? You said S and S.
I have no clue on this.
Okay.
I wish I could think of an answer on this. I mean, I don't know.
So I would like to respond this way. I think when we are coaching, and coaching is a very huge time and money investment, unless the fundamental shift happens, I think we as coaches are also, I personally feel, it's my personal thing, that I have not played my role, which means that am I working with the individual, his beliefs, fundamentally his beliefs, who he thinks he is, and because the behavior is an outcome of who he is, what he thinks of himself. Behavior is only an expression. And before behavior comes his thoughts and beliefs. So unless we address or unless we work with the individual, the coachee at that level, and that's why we do all these tools, we do the 360 to help them to come with the belief level. And quite often beliefs do get, leaked out in their conversations. So once the beliefs change, once the beliefs have got, because beliefs are self-limiting, unless the beliefs have been addressed, I have seen huge shift in human beings. Sometimes they say, was it me that, 3 months back? And I think belief level, human being level, we have to really work with the individual, not the roles. The roles come later. And the roles, each role demands a different behavioral dimension. Whether you're a leader, if you're a leader, you're I also bring in my conversations a family part. What are the roles they have?
I agree.
I work with that also quite a bit in all my senior leader conversations.
Yeah. I have an observation. I'm kind of provoked by the question that was asked by Shantanu about the sponsor role. So I want to make a bit of what might sound like a departure from CFI's view on the role of the sponsor, right? But it's not. Now, when we are talking about coaching for future readiness, we need to understand the fundamental philosophy of increasing philosophy of organizations, that the talent belongs to the organization and not the boss. Okay, there are two philosophies. That talent belongs to the boss or talent belongs to the organization. Now, when organizations hire coaches for future readiness, it emanates from the philosophy that the talent belongs to the organization. The boss is just today's custodian. Therefore, quite often the immediate manager may not be the true sponsor of the larger game plan of what is in mind for this guy, where is he going to head, and so on.
Very interesting.
As we discussed recently, quite often the coachee is top talent, the manager is not top talent. So we may need to listen to the manager's boss and the larger stakeholders. Whether they talk or not, we need to be able to listen to their brief of what do they really want from this person. And quite often, for example, the CEO might say, look, what is holding us back from growth is my leaders are not able to step up. And that the immediate manager is not saying. It is the head of the business who is saying. Therefore, we constantly first try to get the head of the business to give a brief to our coaches, not just the immediate manager, because he has the real brief of what is holding the organization back, number one. Having said that, I'm not saying bypass the immediate manager or ignore him. The immediate manager may be able to say, what is he doing today which is holding him back? What are current behaviors which are derailers? What do I want him to do today to perform very well? That is the best he may be able to say. Very few managers care much about saying where is he going to head 5 years from now, because he himself doesn't know. So we are increasingly, and I am increasingly, as I listen to more and more sponsors for future role effectiveness, I'm beginning to develop this view that we use the immediate sponsor to say, okay, for him to act on this, what opportunities can you create? how can you help him? But
Yeah.
the brief itself is much wider and is likely to come from someone who's more inspirational, who has that bigger interest in the long-term survival of the organization, who's actually wanting to spend that money. For example, just to give you an example, Reliance Hydrocarbon, when they decided to use coaching in addition to executive education with Duke's University and assessment with YSC, Mr. What is the board member's name? What Memani is he? Meswani, Hetal Meswani. He's on the main board of Reliance. He came for the launch. Hetal came for the launch and said, I want this to happen. I want these 30 leaders to be available to run the future functions and the future businesses and so on. The immediate managers were there, but they were present. So right now we are working with L&T Technologies. The CEO is actually driving the coaching for some 15, 18 leaders. Immediate managers are involved, but the pain is felt at the highest level. That's what I'm trying to say.
So Ganesh, I have a question here. I think it's a very valuable thing you said, that yes, for the grooming for future, the very high level sponsor has a bigger picture. But so in this 3-way conversations, which I continue to believe are very critical,
right?
We still are having the line managers in the conversations, and whether it's review or whether it's post conversation, which to me is that I won't use the word detrimental, but really not in line with the.
No, so Sarada, what I'm saying is we need to change the tone of conversations. The tone of conversation is no longer, hey, do you approve this goal?
Yeah.
The tone of conversation will be, what are you going to do to help this guy achieve this goal? I'm saying, I think CFI and our coaches need to change the conversation. Change the conversation. Change the whole dialogue. No longer to say, will you please approve this goal? No, no, no. Will you, how are you going to help him achieve this? I think that is where we need to find our place. Because somebody else is spending the money and their urgency aspirations are high, and therefore the discourse has to be different from CFI coaches. That is the expectation I'm sensing.
Ganesh, that's a very valid point you've raised, and you use the word increasingly, and that is true. Increasingly, we are facing this.
Yes.
And I would like to submit that just the sponsor brief in a group, you're talking about the least common denominator, his expectations, right? Generalizing. But that perhaps is not sufficient. It helps, definitely. It's a step in the right direction. Ideal, I think, would be if the 3-way meetings can become 4-way meetings. Wherever possible, bring in the super sponsor also in.
Yes.
It's a very good point.
And because that ensures alignment.
Yes.
And what I would like to call calibration of expectations.
Correct.
Because very often,
in fact, we always push for that. You're absolutely right. We push and say, no, can your business head, can your CEO talk to our coaches?
Right.
And very often we succeed in doing that. I mean, the classic example is Sundaram. Saroja is involved in this. I don't know who is here. The managing director and the chairman, vice chairman were involved in giving the brief. Right? The immediate managers were involved very much, and they played a great supportive role, no doubt. But they played a great supportive role because of the tone set by the MD. So that I'm saying, I think all of us as coaches need to now play our game a little differently is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, Ganesh, I have a point to make here. I completely agree. If there is a complete buy-in from the top man and he, talks to the people, it goes, several steps ahead. But I find that the institutionalization of the man meeting the coaches or the top man or the meeting them during the coaching process, at least 3 times, having a one-to, I think that goes a long way. Otherwise, you know,
Yeah.
this guy, at the end of the coaching session, the big boss may say, "Acha, this guy has not changed here."
Correct.
See, I've heard people say that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the continuous reinforcements also, I think, matters a lot. I think it's a fantastic point. Also, I just want to make one observation. Recently, coaching for the next level, a guy from a large company I was coaching, and the guy is extremely good. You know, he's efficient, he's effective, and his boss has said, "I don't know, yeah, what you guys will coach him on." You know, in the sense, you know, he's a super efficient and he's a good guy, really. My interaction with him revealed that he's a good manager. So then, after a lot of conversations, he is basically a guy who's not a wow creator. He's a guy who can do what he's asked to do. So that I said, okay, let's identify the wow moments which you can create for your stakeholder. That became a goal for a future leader. So those are the guys who really, I just wanted to, since you're talking about futuristic levels, I mean, can we create, how will you create wow moments for your stakeholders with the goal?
Yeah.
And then say, these are the 2-3 actions you will take. I thought I'd just share this with you. Thank you.
Raj, Ruby has raised her hand for quite some time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to comment on the three-way meeting. So one of the practices I do is when the goals are done, I ask the coachee to, when sharing the goals with the sponsor, also say what would they require or expect from the sponsor in supporting to work on these goals.
Yeah.
So during that, it becomes very clear that the onus is also the sponsor. So that was one observation. But I had a question for both Sharda and Sridhar. One of the things that I have observed a lot is relationship building. It is not a goal for most people are individual contributors. And the moment you talk about relationships, networks, it's more like, oh, I need to have a network. I need to do more networking. But that whole depth of relationship building, nurturing, investing is just not there. And any insights from your experiences around that would be really wonderful, especially in the middle managers. They're all very individual contributors. Even though they lead teams, it's still very technical, very job focused, but not relationships. So that whole balance between task and people orientation is somehow amiss. And when you grow in the leadership ladder, they don't have a network. They don't have anyone to fall back. They don't know whom to ask for help. And how can I ask for help? I've become a leader. So any insights from both your experiences would be great. Thank you.
Okay. I think what I have seen is many times I was called as a coach in some companies, manufacturing, again, I'm going back. There's people who are, I told you, mid-level, very high performance in their technically and domain expertise, but their people skills, relationship skills, very low. So organizationally, company has also accepted, because till that level, they want the performance, they want the deliverables, they want their technical dimension to be really the core of their performance. But the moment they are getting ready for getting groomed for future leaders, they realize that they're falling short, and they hire coaches to address that dimension. And that's when these people start focusing on, they realize, in fact, right now with a couple of coaching that I'm doing, they realize that they have reached the pinnacle of their domain expertise, technical, and that now they have to focus on the people and relationships skills dimension. And their entire focus of coaching is on how to do that and make that happen into their, that is technical expertise and people management skills. So my observation was that organizations are okay with it, because what their focus from these people to certain level is very different, not relationships, not how they're solving issues and how they're really, bringing in technical solutions and all that. But only when they're getting upgraded to a higher level of being, identified for leadership roles, that we step in, and that dimension becomes a focus area. And therefore, I can't say for all industries or sectors. I feel this is itself a culture of the organization, many of the companies. And when the focus is different, obviously that skill also will be on the lower side, is my personal response.
Ruby, this whole business about people relationship kind of stuff is is a cause for concern for many people who have not had that kind of role or who have not had that kind of experience. So they are completely awestruck by how other people are. They generally assume that people relationship role is generally for the marketing guys and the sales guys and not for anybody else. But it requires a lot of patience for us to help them open their eyes to the fact that as an organization, we are a set of people who are actually running the organization, not the machine. To be able to work alongside with people, there are some simple ways in which they can understand and start building relationships. So we need to get them to be more confident about building relationships. One of the things, for instance, I tried is saying, instead of looking at people relationship as a whole, let us look at a couple of stakeholders that you have to work with. Which of these people do you think you know very well? Which of these people do you don't know at all? Now, let us say that we have to get to know this person in the next 3-6 months reasonably well to have a cup of tea or a meal with him, kind of stuff, right? And then we work step by step at trying to get to know this. Most of the time, what they don't know is we don't know this guy beyond his place of work. For instance, that I know in a particular case that a particular factory manager had a huge collection of wristwatches from around the world. Nobody knew it, right? I happened to know it because he told me once, because I was on the Titan business and he said something about watches and then he showed me his collection of watches. So I told him that, look, if you can start knowing people beyond their area of work, what is their passion? What makes them tick? With a little bit of questioning, you can get this. And start from what interests them and bring them to what interests you, and not the other way around, right? So I think these are simple things that can be taught and can be learned.
Thank you.
I think it's an important point. One is, I would say that this is where I go back to context. If it's the organization structure is a functional organization, it is designed for competition. It is not designed for collaboration. First point. Second, up to the time you're an individual contributor and a first-time manager, you succeed by just doing your bit and winning your part. It's not even part of your ask. The moment you become a manager of managers is when even the competency framework has collaboration. Till then, it doesn't have collaboration. It has execution excellence, it has speed and all of those things. So even organizations know that you can't confuse people by saying you ye bhi karo, wo bhi karo. They say, hey, first you get this right, you get task right, you get supervision right, then you get peer relationship, working across boundaries, because he doesn't even get called for an all hands meeting where the business planning is discussed. So how would he even figure this out? He won't figure out. He says, I have to make production work. Only when he gets called for a cross-functional team. So the organizational structure, the way work is done, the business process will influence their behavior. So where we as coaches, when we come in there, it's an uphill task to change all that. In the design, every day his behavior is contrary, that he has to fight every day. You know, why would he listen to it? So, so he has to find his own means of doing it. That's why, as someone said, at younger levels, mentoring is better. Maybe working with the whole team is better. You know, guiding the whole team to win together is better. Real life work opportunities must be there for them to collaborate. Otherwise, you will teach him collaborate, he will go and compete. So those hard realities we have to do, which is why teamwork, team mentoring is becoming popular at mid-levels, because you get the whole team together and get them to practice new behavior. And therefore, in leadership development programs, we are finding a lot of action learning projects are focusing entirely on bringing diverse functions together. Collaboration is emphasized. Actually, it's not really the business outcome. Do these guys bang their heads together, see if they can work together, which is the right thing. And when organizations miss it, then after that, people sit next to each other and send emails and WhatsApp messages, and just becomes the default culture. Becomes very, very difficult. Yeah, that's a problem.
Hands are up.
Yeah, we have time for 2 more questions. Shekhar, I think you put your hand up. And Harsha also.
One comment I had on this less than 35 years, that team coaching. I thought one of the challenges for the young people is to, they express the feeling of helplessness, that they are not really empowered to take certain decisions. Even though they are smarter than the bosses, they end up doing one level below because of the design of the organization where the schedule of authority is not empowered with them. So do you think the coach can add some value in this through this, this four-way meeting there, or how do we handle that kind of a situation?
Sridhar, Sharda?
I personally feel that, see, if an organizational, if you're talking of authority, and there's an organizational authority dynamics or hierarchy, and where they're not empowered, it's a very different game where, you need to have conversations. They need to have conversations. If they can be empowered at that level, then why authority is not getting delegated? This is a question I have, because it's an organizational policy. And as coaches, I think if we are having those stakeholders, and to what extent it is impacting, is it one-off, or this one individual who is, saying that he's not empowered. So I don't know whether, apart from coaches, apart from having conversations, do we really come into the picture of influencing that policy? I doubt, because that's not our, scope.
Yeah, that's not the role. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harsha?
I want to add one point to this. I had the opportunity to work with a very large engineering organization where this kind of feeling used to be there, where people felt that they were not empowered. But there was no proof to say that they were not empowered. That is one, right? Then I had a conversation with the boss, and I said that this is the general feeling that people seem to have. He said, oh, actually, they're all empowered, but they never tried it. And there is a fear of failure. The risk of failing actually stopped them, and it is easy for them to believe that they are not empowered. They were not blaming somebody else, but this is the thing. And then, so he said, I'm glad that you brought this up. We'll figure out a way of helping them understand this. Right?
Yeah, I think my question is for Sridhar, Sharda, and probably Ganesh also. It is about coaching is always within a context. I'm doing one of the CFI engagements today, where the engagement started in March. Post that, the head of HR, she has left. So I don't know what agenda she had for the overall engagement. There has been a change in the CEO also, right? But my coachee is there in the organization for 18 years. And the chairman also is the founder of the company, right? Now, in this context, my questions are, CFI would have done many engagements with this client in the past 10 years, right? If there's any knowledge of those engagements and the culture of that organization, that would help people getting into that client. Second is, if Ganesh or anybody else is meeting the new head of HR or the CEO, any conversations which happened there, which would be pointers to help us nudge our coachee, would also be useful. These are two thoughts I had.
Right. No, I know which client you're talking about. I think the best way to address this, because it's a very specific issue, the best way to address it is if that in some way you are stuck, right? Then it's for you and Abhirami, me to have a conversation with the right person in the organization, right? Obviously, HR is only the technical sponsor. The real sponsor is somebody else. We need to meet that sponsor urgently if there is a stuckness in the engagement. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, facilitate that.
Yeah, there's nothing which is getting stuck. I'm getting information from the coachee, but his perspective may be different from the vision of the new CEO.
Correct.
Right?
No, I think the conversation
he
will
might
help,
think it's a
definitely.
waste of time, right?
Correct.
He may not have bought into why this is important. And so those are the kind of higher level issues, right?
Correct.
I'll close the engagement, goals will be set, implemented, but it may not meet the new CEO's vision. One more meeting probably, or two more sessions would probably help the overall client situation.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Sure.
So thank you all. It's been good, lovely 90 minutes. I really enjoyed, and looking forward to next few sessions. We will announce the next one maybe after 30, 45 days, we'll give it a bit of a break and do it. Thank you, Ganesh, and thank you all. Looking forward to many more such interactions. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me for this wonderful, enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharda. Nice of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ganesh. Bye, Sharda.
Okay,
Bye, Chandrasekhar. Bye. See you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sharda. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you.
Bye. See you.
Good. Thank you so much, Sridhar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sridhar, I have a question to you. Personal question. Who is that from Titan who had so much self-correction? Ronnie Talati, is it?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Chandrasekhar. Thanks for helping me out on that. Yeah.
No,
So we'll
my
be in
question.
touch. Right. Thank you. Bye. Right. See you.